Hey guys, get into a band that's always kind of been very deep in my subconscious. I don't always listen to it, but it's Black Sabbath. I mean, they certainly laid a timeless impact on me by being the band that just invented the metal genre, which I grew up around an awful lot. Not really a metalhead these days, but I certainly appreciate what the genre is. And I think this is perfect. This is more like the zombie and of like kind of the more like what how like a more slow pace, more laid back take. Like it's almost like the Stooges meets Led Zeppelin a little bit. It's just like a kind of its own sort of doom sludgy kind of sound. And I love it. Their best sound, they were awesome. I mean, I actually prefer listening to them over Led Zeppelin these days in a sense because they're just darker. I think I like the darkness when I'm looking for this kind of mood these days. And it's funny because I grew up on it, but it's not even like a nostalgic feeling. I think they just might be like just kind of talking about like death in an over the top wave without being cheesy or campy. It's like much how like a lot of like George A. Romero films kind of feel like the best ones like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. Like those just kind of felt a certain kind of just like fun, but also kind of freaky in its own right as well. So it's like its own balance. And these songs are just some of these songs are just really, really catchy. So when to get into it, the self-titled album Black Sabbath in 1970, and I like this album a great deal. I mean, I had phases growing up where I was like obsessed with this band because I thought the bass, I thought the guitar work and drums, I thought it was all just a super powered kind of sound. I thought, but this is the metal I love the most. I don't care for most metal, but this metal is great because I think the thing about metal is I think a lot of it, and honestly, I feel this way even about bands like Slayer. Sometimes it feels like it's too much of a dead end feeling of like, okay, I feel this way, but I don't really know where the music's actually pointing a finger for me to direct it. It's just painting a picture of okay, like a certain hell, but it's like I like the this is sort of looking. I think this is the best way to look at it right here, though, because it's like just going through like emotions while you're in hell, a feeling of hell, kind of like the blues. This is almost just making it like the blues in a sense, but a really, really interesting take on the blues, as well as just like songs that really just get into the lonely side of the blues, in a lot of ways, and it's really incredible how it captures that tone so smoothly. Um, I could always listen to this and just feel like it's a very like entertaining experience ultimately. And the feeling I get from Black Sabbath, this is what I think it relates to me so well. It's like the guys who couldn't get to go to prom or didn't get the the girl of their dreams, and they basically just started a band and did their own thing, and they found something even better for it, which is just like having fun as a fan. And that's what a lot of Black Sabbath feels like in a nutshell. That's why I don't listen to it too much because I think that is a very personal foundation in a lot of ways. I think a lot of ways is, and it's not like trying to. It's just more like I hear all this stuff, I do all this stuff, and I'm like, somehow I almost just prefer this feeling in a way that makes sense to me. It's like I would rather pursue this feeling than pursue. I guess sharing love with another person. It's almost like finding my own love and expressing it. I guess just finding my own way of expressing that. And that's what's so cool about this album. They're having fun, with it all too. But then Paranoid in 1970 is a masterpiece. That's one of the best albums ever made. I keep coming back to that, and I'm like, yeah, this is timeless, really. Um, and I love a lot of the purpose behind this whole album. All the songs just have mood and texture to them. Like Rat Salad just has this great drum solo that reminds me a lot of like it's like Moby Dick from Led Zeppelin too. But I end up loving the guitar riff even more. The bass going into it all. It's just so genius sounding. I really love this. Like Iron Man, it's just one of the first song I ever learned on guitar. So I mean, I was like 10 years old. After I got home from watching School Rock, I learned that song. War Pigs has awesome soloing, and I mean, I love Ozzy Osbourne, and it's just over the top personality. There's something very ridiculous about him because you don't always know what he's talking about, but that's the idea. It sounds like a man who's just going crazy amidst the madness of the time. So very raw display. Before Ozzy Osbourne actually started acting really insane, he was more like in a haze, like a bit of like a just uncertain kind of perspective rather than an overconfident. There's a vibe here that the band puts out here that's just pretty amazing. Like it's pretty timeless, much better than like again. This is just all about its feeling, like just sort of embracing a youthful maybe perspective on death, perhaps, but how embracing it and feeling almost just like above those feelings. I feel like alive from from embracing death. That's what Black Sabbath kind of expresses. Like theories wear boots. And just Tony Iommi, who actually like lost his finger, so it's like a kind of like a cool like thing of it. Like he made it even better, basically. Like he invented this very new electric sound that went on to be like the influence for metal, and how metal's doing. And he can be really funny too. Like Hand of Doom is just perfect. I mean, it's a really terrifying kind of alternative rock song. Literally in 1970, like they'd be one of the very alternative rock, and that's what a lot of Black Sabbath ends up sounding like. A lot of alternative rock, and it fits right in a sense. Electric Funeral is perfect at capturing. Yeah, like a lot of this does feel like I'm at a cemetery of some sort. Planet Caravan's like a calm moment, and I really love all this. It's really a perfect album. This self-titled song is just so perfect in its simplicity. Like literally us I think the song that made my imagination run the most wild with the bass, the way that it kind of gave the song such color and texture. It's just like it kind of blows me away timelessly. Same with Master of Reality in 1971. That's one of their best albums because it's just got so much enthusiasm to it. And again, they're the guys that couldn't get the girl, so they ended up starting a project that was even better than that. That's the feeling that's kind of timeless about a lot of rock. And I learned that's kind of what a lot of it is. It's just like building something better and finding your own love instead of love that, a woman will take you through. I'd rather see that in person. Like, you do your thing. I'm doing my thing. We'll get close if something comes natural. I don't like to force things. I believe things are meant to happen as they will. It's like if you don't ever find that in your life, so be it. I have my own purpose already set, basically, and the melancholy is meant to guide me. So I end up feeling just as proud of the melancholy as I do the joy. So, and that Black Sabbath's a good representation of what that is. Just like such endearing kind of songs like Sweet Leaf. It's just such a interesting sound. Just like they're becoming a bit of like Ozzy Osbourne's. I think he's becoming more of a junkie at this point. So he's kind of just expressing what that feels like, kind of continuing the foundation of Hand of Doom. Into the Void is just like facing death in a very original kind of way and overcoming it. Children of the Grave. There's just something that feels very dead about the album. It's like kind of how death dominates reality always in the end. And I think it's a darkness and tragedy. It just kind of captures that. But again, just the best guitar tone possible from Tony Iommi. I love the song After Forever. That's probably my favorite one on the album because that's actually capturing the band in a Christian place. They actually have strong faith and they really do believe in God, like they're trying to say. Because I think they were criticized as being lovers of Satan, but no, they actually love God and they're afraid of Satan. The reason they act satanic is because kind of acting and embracing evil kind of cures the anxiety of evil in a lot of ways. It's like I know it's out there just as much as good and great as evil as bad is out there just as well. This is a song that just kind of comes into piece with it. But Bill Ward's drumming is always amazing. It's such energy. That's more subtle than Keith Moon and John Bonham even, but he just really is just as great. Not always too show offy, it's just always kind of doing its own thing. And sort of the Grave bass line. Oh my God, the bass is so good. And then you got Solitude, which is kind of like this version of Playing a Caravan, which is perhaps just as great of a song because it's just about man's sorrow and depression. I love this stuff. It's almost like a more calm version of what Yes is doing in a lot of ways too. But that was kind of like the two greatest things that happened out of Black Sabbath: Paranoid and Master of Reality. So 1970, 1971 range. And it's still pretty cool in 1972, Volume 4, which is a giant mess. It's a really entertaining mess, and some of these songs are still amazing. But they were definitely getting a little unhinged, I think, at this point, particularly Ozzy Osbourne. He's getting a little hyper-eccentric, not always in the best ways like he wants. No, he is much better eccentric, I think, of Paranoid and Master of Reality. Early, the first three albums of Black Sabbath, they got a little weirder from here. Songs like Changes, like him doing a ballad, it just feels off. I really don't like it. It's a pretty awful ballad, I think. But Slow Blind's one of the best songs of all time. That's just like a classic rocker that's harder than ever before. It's sloppy in its own kind of fitting way because it's just dramatic. And I think Black Sabbath is getting more dramatic as they go. So they didn't always land the best feeling. Sometimes it gets too cheesy. But I think at its best moments, it does feel like perfectly like a cinematic horror experience. Supernaut as well, which is just, it's perfect. That's a perfect rock song. The way that the drums are so heavy really get me. Will of Confusion, there's just so many changes going on, and it makes me just want to headbang. Literally, that's the feeling about this era of Black Sabbath. It's just getting heavier. Except for that ballad. Okay, what? But then Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath came in 1973, and that's a crazy album cover. That's freaky, but it's not one of my favorite sounds. I love the self-titled track. That's kind of its own sort of masterpiece. Sabbath Kid Dabber is pretty great and interesting, but Killing Yourself to Live's pretty great. But a lot of it's just, it is a little bit, the sound's getting a little bit too campy, I would say. And Sabotage 1975 is the same. Terrible album cover. It's a pretty great moments on here. Best song has got to be Symptom of the Universe. That's maybe the best song the band ever made. That keeps coming back to me as their genius song. Thrill of It All is pretty great. Melogamania, Hole in the Sky, all that. But honestly, yeah, it really tanked that after that album with Ozzy Osbourne. They had a few albums that were just really bad. Then Heaven and Hell 1980, then Dio ended up taking over the band. And yeah, it's considered a classic run as well. I don't really like it that much. I just don't feel the same kind of love of the same kind of classic spark of spirit that Ozzy Osbourne's era was kind of laying out. It was just so good that here it just feels like it's just, I prefer Dio's solo work, honestly, because here it's just very loudly doing its own thing entirely, which is just not Black Sabbath. It's really not the feeling of them at all. It just feels more like a slightly generic metal band, I feel in the early 80s. It didn't feel like it's too inspired to me. Singing's good and all, but again, it feels like it's meant to be a Dio project, not the Black Sabbath project. All the band members, I feel like, I don't know, it doesn't feel the same to me. I don't feel the same energy. I don't feel the same enthusiasm. Maybe it was just losing the youthful side of it, just kind of getting a little old with it. I think they did their best rough. And yeah, 70, 71 is their prime era. most certainly. And a lot of stuff from 72 through 75. Yeah, a lot of cherry pick a lot of the great masterpiece songs out of that era. You got a pretty great band here. It reminded me a lot of the band Caius, which was a big band in the 90s. Josh Homme, who went on to be Queens of Stone Age. And I'm outgrown. I'm a little tired of Queens of Stone Age, but I do love Caius. Caius is the feeling I really want. We might have upgraded Black Sabbath even better. I'll have to talk about them sometime. The timeless influence they've laid on me. But I think Black Sabbath also lays this timeless influence really well. And yeah, I recommend this band to anybody. They're pretty awesome.